At the age of 60, Amina believed her life had already given her everything it ever would. She had been a wife for 40 years, a mother for decades, and a quiet backbone of her home. Her husband, Rashid, was her world, her habit, her morning tea, her evening silence. When he passed away suddenly one winter night, the house did not just lose a man, it lost its voice. For days, Amina sat on the edge of the bed staring at the cupboard that still smelled like him. His shawl hung where he left it. His shoes waited by the door. Every sound felt too loud and every silence felt endless. Relatives came, neighbors whispered prayers, and everyone said the same words. "You are strong. Allah will give you sabr. Your children will take care of you now." But when the house emptied and night returned, Amina felt something deeper than grief. She felt useless. Her children lived in other cities, busy with their own lives. They called every day and visited when they could, but after the calls ended, Amina was alone with her thoughts. She had never earned her own money. She had never made a decision without discussing it with Rashid. Now, every choice fell on her shoulders. The pension Rashid left behind was small, enough for food and bills, but not enough for dignity. Amina hated asking her children for money, even though they offered again and again. She wanted to stand on her own feet, even at this age. One afternoon, while cleaning the storeroom, she found an old wooden box. Inside were fabric pieces, needles, threads, and embroidery frames. Her hands froze. She remembered her younger self, Amina, the girl who loved stitching dresses for neighbors. Amina, who once dreamed of opening a small tailoring shop. Marriage, responsibilities, and life had slowly buried that dream. She picked up a piece of cloth and ran her fingers over it. For the first time since Rashid died, she felt something warm in her chest. Not happiness, but purpose. That evening, she stitched quietly. Her hands remembered what her heart had forgotten. The needle moved with confidence. By midnight, a small embroidered table cover lay in front of her. The next morning, she showed it to her neighbor, Farzana. Farzana looked at it with surprise and admiration. "This is beautiful. You should sell these." Amina laughed softly. "Who will buy from an old woman?" Farzana smiled. "People buy quality, not age." That sentence stayed with Amina all day. She started stitching every morning after Fajr prayer. Table covers, cushion designs, simple dupatta borders. Her hands ached, but her heart felt alive. Each finished piece felt like a small victory. Farzana posted pictures on her phone and showed them to friends. Slowly, orders began to come. Nothing big, but enough to make Amina feel proud. Her first customer gave her money with both hands. Amina held the notes tightly. It was not about the amount. It was about independence. She came home and placed the money beside Rashid's photograph. "I'm trying," she whispered. "I'm not giving up." But success never comes without fear. Amina worried constantly. What if orders stop? What if my hands fail me? What if people laugh? Some nights she cried silently, missing Rashid's guidance. Other nights she talked to him as if he were listening. "I wish you were here to see this." Within a few weeks, word spread in the neighborhood. Women came to her house asking for custom work. Amina's workspace moved from the storeroom to the living room. Her home slowly filled with color again. Still, deep inside, she felt unsure. This was new territory. Business numbers, pricing, deadlines. She had never dealt with such things. One day, her son visited and noticed the activity. He was surprised and worried. "Ummi, you do not need to work at this age." Amina looked at him calmly. "I am not working for money only. I'm working to breathe." He had no answer. That night, Amina wrote something for the first time in her life, a small notebook titled My Work. She listed costs, materials, time, and prices, each line written slowly, carefully. She was learning. At 60 years old, Amina was becoming someone new, not just a widow, not just a mother, but a woman building something with her own hands. She did not know yet that the small beginning would soon turn into a real business. She did not know the challenges waiting ahead. All she knew was that grief had not ended her story. It had only changed its direction. Amina's routine slowly transformed into discipline. She woke before sunrise, prayed quietly, and planned her day with intention. The notebook became her guide. She wrote what to stitch, how much fabric to buy, and how long each piece took. Every page made her feel more in control. At first, mistakes were many. Threads broke, colors did not match, customers changed their minds. Once she worked for 3 days on a shawl, only for the buyer to disappear. That night, Amina sat alone, holding the finished piece, feeling foolish and tired. She almost gave up. But the next morning, she folded the shawl neatly and placed it with the others. She reminded herself that even loss was learning. Rashid's voice echoed in her memory. Nothing honest ever goes to waste. She decided to be brave. She increased her prices slightly. Her hands were skilled and her time was valuable. To her surprise, customers did not leave. Instead, they respected her confidence. Farzana helped her set a simple name, Amina Handcrafted Creations. The name felt strange and powerful at the same time. For the first time, her work had an identity. Women from nearby areas began to visit. They sat in her living room, drank tea, and discussed designs. Laughter returned to the house. Walls that once heard only silence now heard dreams. Amina learned to say no. She refused rushed orders and unfair prices. Each no strengthened her self-respect. Her children noticed the change. Their mother spoke with clarity. She stood taller. She smiled more. One evening, her daughter asked, "Ami, are you tired?" Amina smiled softly. "I am busy, not tired." Money slowly increased, enough to fix the leaking roof, enough to buy better materials, enough to give small charity without hesitation. But with growth came fear. What if I cannot manage more orders? What if my health fails? What if this happiness is temporary? One day, Amina's hands shook badly. Pain ran through her fingers. She panicked, thinking it was the end. She rested, prayed, and returned slowly. She adjusted her work pace. She learned to take care of herself. Business taught her balance. Not everything had to be rushed. Not everything had to be perfect. She hired a young girl from the neighborhood to help with basic stitching. Teaching someone else felt strange. She was no longer just a worker. She was becoming a mentor. The girl looked at her with admiration. "Auntie, I want to be like you." Amina's heart filled with quiet pride. At night, she spoke to Rashid's photograph again. "I wish you could see this. I am stronger than I ever knew." She realized grief had shaped her, but not broken her. Loneliness had pushed her, but not stopped her. Her small business was no longer just about survival. It was about purpose, dignity, and courage. And yet the biggest test was still ahead, a challenge that would decide whether Amina's dream would stay small or grow into something she never imagined. The real test came when opportunity knocked without warning. One afternoon, a woman named Sarah visited Amina's house. She owned a small boutique in the city and had heard about the embroidery work. Sarah examined the pieces carefully. She touched the fabric, checked the finishing, and studied the designs. Then she made an offer. She wanted bulk orders. Amina's heart raced. Bulk meant growth. Bulk also meant risk. The order was bigger than anything she had handled before. Deadlines were strict. Quality could not drop. Payment would come after delivery. That night, Amina could not sleep. Fear and excitement battled inside her. Rashid's face appeared in her thoughts, calm and steady. He always believed in careful courage. The next morning, Amina prayed for clarity. Then she said, yes. She expanded her notebook. She calculated costs, time, helpers, and materials. She hired 2 more women from the neighborhood, women who needed income and respect. Her living room turned into a small workshop. Threads, colors, and fabric filled every corner. The house buzzed with energy. The first week was chaos. Mistakes happened. A deadline was almost missed. Amina scolded herself silently. But instead of panicking, she led. She taught patiently. She corrected gently. She worked alongside everyone. Her leadership surprised even her. She was not loud. She was firm. The women trusted her. They followed her standards. They shared her pride. Halfway through the order, Sarah visited again. She inspected the work closely. Amina stood quietly, waiting. Sarah smiled. "This is excellent." Amina felt her knees weaken with relief. Still, the pressure did not ease. Amina's health struggled. Her back hurt, her hands swelled, her children worried. "Ami, slow down." Amina listened this time. She reorganized work. She delegated more. She rested without guilt. She was learning the hardest lesson. Success should not cost your life. The final delivery day arrived. Boxes were packed carefully, each piece checked twice. When Sarah paid the full amount, Amina's hands trembled. It was more money than she had ever earned at once. She did not cry. She closed her eyes and breathed. Later that evening, she distributed wages to the women. Their faces glowed with gratitude. For them, this was more than money. It was dignity. That night, Amina sat alone in her room. She looked at Rashid's photograph and smiled. "I did it." She knew then. This was no longer a hobby. This was a business. But with recognition came visibility. And with visibility came challenges she had never faced before. Competition, jealousy, and pressure. The world beyond her quiet home. Amina's journey was rising, but the climb was far from over. Success brought light, but it also brought shadows. As Amina's work gained attention, whispers began to spread. Some people praised her, others questioned her. Why is she working at this age? Why is she hiring women? Why is she charging so much? At first, the words hurt. Old insecurities returned quietly at night. Amina wondered if she was overstepping limits meant for someone like her. Then a bigger problem appeared. A new shop opened nearby selling machine-made embroidery at lower prices. Customers compared. Orders slowed. Fear returned stronger than before. For the first time, Amina doubted her decision to grow. She sat alone, staring at unfinished work, feeling tired and small. That evening, Farzana came and sat beside her. "You are not competing with machines. You are competing with meaning." Those words changed everything. Amina decided to tell her story through her work. She attached small handwritten tags to each piece, stitched by hand by women rebuilding their lives. She focused on quality, not quantity. She introduced custom designs, personal touches, names, colors, memories. Slowly, customers returned. Not everyone, but the right ones. One day, Sarah called again. Amina expected another order. Instead, Sarah offered something bigger. She wanted Amina to supply exclusively to her boutique, with her brand name displayed. Amina hesitated. Exclusivity meant dependence. She negotiated calmly. Fair prices, clear terms, respect for her workers. Sarah agreed. This was new territory. Contracts, paperwork, trust. Amina asked for help. She learned instead of hiding. Her children supported her fully now. They saw not a struggling mother, but a capable entrepreneur. Amina hired more women. She trained them patiently. She created simple rules: quality, fairness, rest. Her home could no longer handle the work. She rented a small workspace nearby. Nothing fancy, just enough. On the opening day, she stood at the door quietly. A sign read, "Amina Handcrafted Creations." She touched it gently. The woman who once felt useless now ran a workshop. The widow who feared loneliness now led a community. Still, life tested her. A sudden illness forced her to stop for weeks. This time, the business did not collapse. Her team continued. Her systems worked. She smiled from her bed, realizing something powerful. She had built something that could stand even without her hands, and that was true success. Only one chapter remained, the ending that would redefine her life. Recovery gave Amina time to think. For the first time in years, she was still without fear. The business continued. Orders were fulfilled. Women worked with confidence. When she returned to the workshop, she was welcomed with smiles and quiet respect. She was no longer just Amina. She was an example. One afternoon, a local women organization invited her to speak. Amina almost refused. She had never spoken in public. But she remembered the woman she once was, silent, invisible, afraid. She accepted. Standing in front of the audience, her hands trembled. Then she spoke honestly about loss, about loneliness, about starting again at 60. There was no pity in the room, only strength. After that day, opportunities came slowly. Training sessions, small exhibitions, mentorship requests. Amina did not chase growth anymore. She chose it carefully. She ensured fair wages, flexible hours, respect. Her business became a safe space, a place where women healed while creating. One evening, she sat with her children. They told her they were proud. Amina smiled with peace. Later that night, she sat alone with Rashid's photograph. "I miss you every day, but I am not broken anymore." She realized something deep. Love does not end with loss. It transforms. At 65, Amina registered her business officially, not for status, but for legacy. She trained a manager, she reduced her hours, she began to live. Mornings were for prayer, afternoons for guidance, evenings for herself. Her story traveled quietly, not as a headline, but as hope. The woman who lost her husband at 60 did not disappear. She rebuilt. She turned grief into growth, loneliness into leadership, pain into purpose. And in doing so, she proved that beginnings do not ask for age. They ask for courage.